What's up everybody, we back at it again with another Magnum Quest video. This is going to be the fourth hero spotlight video in the series. In this one we're going to be covering the poster hero for the game, ARES. I wanted to do some of the others first because I know many players are tired of hearing ARES this, ARES that, but he is a must-have hero, and I'll be covering gear sets, star map, runes, skills, popular setups, and where they rank in terms of priority for their faction. Let's get it. No idea what I'm going to do about the lighting, so for now it is what it is. If it's really light outside, the blinds I have aren't blackout, so it kind of messes with it. But moving on, for gear sets you have two options here, but there is definitely one I would favor over the other. The set I would run on him is the Fury set. I know if you watched my star map breakdown for new players, I don't think I had this one on him at the time, but it was probably due to me forgetting to re-equip it. This set gives at 2 set pieces you're going to gain 30 hit, 3 set pieces you're going to gain minus 15% physical damage taken, and then at 4 set pieces you're going to gain 20% crit. The reason why I would go with this set is because with that 4 set piece you're going to get crit percentage, and that's very essential early on because you may not have access to runes, star map obviously, so this is a very good potential damage jump early on. And like I said, it allows for more rune / star map optimization, where you can maybe add into more crit damage once you get your crit percentage to what you desire. The other reason is because of the hit. The hit will allow him to land his ultimate spin to win easier. The other set I think you can utilize is the Guardian set. This set gives at 2 set pieces you're going to gain 6% attack, at 3 set pieces you're going to gain 20% def, and then at 4 set pieces you're going to gain 15% HP. I consider this as a second option because maybe you're just unlucky with gear set pieces, since the attack percentage is very low, being the first stat with a 2 set, and ARES survivability is pretty good, especially since most pair him up with Ion. So because of those reasons, I would consider this a second option. Moving over into rune options, as I've said in my previous video with Windin, DPS have 2 options. The green energy rune is what I would suggest on ARES for chapter adventure, dungeon, because you want him to get as many ultimates off as possible for 2 solid reasons. The first reason, well, it does a lot of damage. And the second reason, he becomes immune to CC, which is crowd control, meaning all effects like Alden's freeze, Oshishi's sleep, etc., and immune to magical damage, allowing him to utilize the leech better when using his ultimate, since only physical damage will hurt him. The other option is the red attack rune, which I suggest switching into for bosses, simply for the fact that your goal is to last the entire boss fight duration, and the stats on the attack rune build up over time, giving you attack plus critical damage, which is ideal for reaching your best possible damage. Stats to be looking for on the rune stat order I'd go for is crit damage, and attack ER or hit ER. Attack ER is great on him as it allows for a faster build up to his ultimate, because he is constantly spinning. The amount of potential enemies you can attack depending on your setup allows for a fast way to gain energy. Hit ER is essentially the same thing, but allows for even quicker energy gain because he's going to be in the front line taking lots of damage from all the enemies. So now we're going to dive into the star map. Before going into the first tier of selectable options, the first active allows him to gain some leech, which is a good thing for the wild heroes because most of them are melee, so they need the survivability. In the bronze tier, as with the other DPS I've covered, I always go glass cannon, all attack or nothing. So for this one I went with attack. Up top I went with crit. I don't like repeating myself, but just in case there's new viewers, you either go with crit or crit damage depending on your hero's stats. You can add to those with runes. Some heroes have self-buff skills, and gear sets like I showed you with the Fury set. Then here I went with attack. And then down here I think some players may have a different perspective. For me, I went with crit resistance because it's universal. Both attack types, magical and physical, can crit, so this just allows me to lower the chances of that. However, I don't know the stats on enemies or how they increase. I'm assuming the further you get into chapters, the better the enemies have in terms of stats. But I'm still waiting on devs confirmation for this. It would be nice to know this so you can optimize your crit resistance for that. Otherwise, an easier example is PvP. Everyone knows players will have runes and they have crit percentage stats, so that will directly lower their chances. The other possibility here is you can do minus physical damage taken. Now for his active skill, you got 2 ways you can go here. The first option is Challenger. Now in my star map video for new players, I showed myself using Show of Strength. The reason I've since switched this to Challenger, as you can see, although it wasn't a huge deal since I was already in late game, I think 27 plus, and started to not use them as much, but for my second account and for any new players watching right now, Challenger works best if you have a good amount of crit percentage. For whatever reason, I haven't had much luck with crit damage stat being rolled on my runes, and since this gives ARES a permanent boost of 30 points, when enemies are at higher levels, which they're always going to be, this is a guaranteed damage boost with the right amount of crit, like I said. It's the best option for pushing the content in this game, whether chapter, adventure, dungeon, etc. The second option is Show of Strength. Now I'm going to be honest here, I haven't done much testing with this one when the newly added rune stats came into the game like attack ER and hit ER, but if you lack crit, I feel this would be a better option, but then you're probably going to need to eventually reset his star map, costing you dragon shards, whenever you do unlock Ash and start farming for better runes. If you have a nice green energy rune with attack ER or hit ER, this is essentially a 100% uptime with a rune like that, as it only lasts for 10 seconds, giving a damage boost of 8%. As for weakening touch, don't bother with this one, you're going to lose out on a lot of damage potential from the other two. In my opinion, Challenger is the best option for him, even if you don't have your crit to where you want it at that very moment, because you will eventually. Now it's up to you if you choose to further his star map to the silver tier, as I think that's where most players stop nowadays with ARES. Star map was introduced into this game much later after many players already hit the late game chapters, so it can be done without it. So bronze tier might be a viable option to stop with if you look at things way down the road, because he does eventually fall off and you will see him used much less, which I'm going to expand on after the silver tier discussion. Moving on over to the silver tier, attack as usual. Now here I went with dodge. I still stand by thinking dodge is the superior defensive stat, simply because a higher dodge than the enemy has hit allows for them to miss their skills. However, like I said earlier, no one knows the stats of enemies, so that's a toss-up unless they eventually add that feature in the game to hover over the enemies during the battle stage start screen seen here. That would be super helpful, and I hope they do this. And then I went with attack, and then here I went with crit damage to further boost the damage potential of my ARES. So when he does crit, you get to see those sweet high numbers, and finally here, attack. As for the third active skill, it's not bad. Blessing of Power allows for HP regeneration when he drops below 40% for the first time. More tools for surviving is okay with me, as he already has the most annoying one, Endless Fury. Yeah, Endless Fury, I said it. It's annoying as shit. Now it's up to you if you choose to further his star map to the gold tier, but I just wanted to say this as a side note. Many players will notice whenever you do reach what is considered late game right now. Some say 25 plus, some say 26 plus, 27 plus. But once you start to make your way through chapter 27 plus, CC crowd control becomes more important to stay alive. So many drop ARES for Kados, depending on how much you're spending, because as a free-to-play / low spender, getting to gold tier is very hard. It's difficult. You can choose to continue with him, but personally, I'd swap over to either Harry, Kados, or Lycidas, or simply Dracula. And then finally, we have the gold tier. I went with dodge for the reasons I've said before. Here I went with attack, dodge once again, and then haste, more haste. Give me all that haste because it's the best stat in the game. Unfortunately, his final active skill options aren't very good compared to the other heroes I've covered so far in this Hero Spotlight series. The only option really here is Bloodlust. The hero gains 40 points of leech when his HP drops below 50%. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it does help him with survivability, but most setups run him with Ion. Actually, I'd say more than most have Ion. Probably 99% of the setups you're going to see have Ion. So that gives him the Revival Shield. Then he has Endless Fury skill, which I mentioned, super annoying. Then he has Leech from his ultimate when he reaches level 201. And then he has that third active skill, Blessing of Power, regenerating HP. So yeah, he's got a lot of survivability here, but there's just no way of him locking down an enemy or enemies, which is why sure he has the damage, but that's just not going to do anything for you when your heroes are getting destroyed in a couple seconds. The other two options, Critical Evasion, giving him dodge, meh. Veteran's Instinct, less damage, meh, once again. If you did choose to go for his gold tier, it's totally up to you. All I'm saying is for free-to-play / low spenders, I'd stop at silver tier max, and then work on alternative heroes I mentioned, such as Harry, Kados, or Dracula. Probably in that order as well. If you lack Kados, you can just move over to Dracula. Alright, so now we're going to get into the popular setups. I did cover a lot of the popular ones for ARES in my late game progression video. This will be clickable at the end of this one since the main meta does involve ARES and I showed the actual battle, so I went more in depth in that video. So for this one, I'm going to show you the typical chapter adventure dungeon setup and then throw in some hero alternatives depending on what the enemy setup and what you have to work with. So the typical setup you would be advancing into once you reach level 201 with your ARES and get rid of Gaia if you were using her up until this point. So Fair, Oshishi in the front, then ARES either back left behind Fair or middle, depending on the enemy setup. Then you're going to go with Fi middle or back left behind Fair, and then Ione. This is one of the main reasons why Forest Hero Food is so demanding. If you haven't run into this problem, you will soon enough. There's so many valuable heroes in the Forest faction that are used so frequently in this game. Ione being basically used all the time with the revival shields, giving your heroes an extra life essentially, plus she has some CC. Fi more so for the haste and energy buff at the beginning, but later on with investment starts to ramp up his damage. Oshishi for all the CC she provides to your team, such as with the enemy team sleep ultimate, and also buffing your heroes with the highest attack with haste. And then Fair for his pull with the fatal attraction skill, so that when your ARES walks up, he's going to have 3 enemies in his melee radius, so when he uses his ultimate spin to win, more targets are able to be hit. Some problems you may run into, it would be Fair missing his pull. It's quite a common occurrence and you may need to retry the stage numerous times till he lands it. If the enemy has a Fi plus Fair combo and just outspeeds you, meaning the enemy Fair gets his pull off first, that can also be an issue. If the team has a Cyan or Carlotta in this position, it's going to throw off your Fair's pull skill direction, causing you to have to make changes to your hero's positioning. Ione dying instantly, in that case try changing her from the corner pocket to the middle or the opposite side, whichever you can find out that makes her survive longer. I covered a lot of this in the late game progression video, so I definitely suggest checking that one out. Other variations that can be utilized would be Dracula instead of Fair. In this case you would drop Fair, then move ARES to the front line so he's guaranteed to be the one teleported to the enemy backline by Dracula. As for the backline, you're going to have a couple options here. If you require less CC, crowd control, but need more damage, you can drop Oshishi for Sir. I would place her in the middle as her Dragon Breath at the beginning of the battle has a better chance to hit all the enemies, and the frontline heroes have a better chance at receiving her heals from the baby dragon since the radius is very small. It's like a 30-degree angle. So a quick tip here is to try to place ARES opposite any enemy setup with like Fair, Gila, or Cyan, as this is going to make them follow ARES to the backline, allowing your backline to be safe like this or like this. Also remember, the enemy frontline hero that does the most damage is best to avoid Dracula being opposite of if possible. You want ARES to take the focus of all the high threats and be that sponge due to all his survivability so he can build up energy faster and do his thing, which is just cause chaos and win the stage for you. So now moving over to the bosses, I did cover this as well regarding Frostpeak guild boss setups. I'll have that clickable at the end as well. But essentially what you want to aim for is 2 support buffers, one being Harry because haste is so valuable off of his ultimate, plus he gives an attack boost. And then the other would be Cinia or Amelia. For optimal performance, Sir is a must as one of the DPS. A typical setup I'd run with ARES would be something like ARES, Cinia, Harry, and then another top DPS of yours, I'd suggest Fang as a solid starter choice here as he can do well, but needs that level 201 for his ultimate damage to give him a shield. Obviously more Ascension Stars, nice runes, gear, etc. will improve his damage and survivability. Can also do like Cyan, Windin. Hista is an option as well, but just much more investment heavy than Fang. There's a lot of options to throw into this spot, depending on your hero pool and who you have invested into. Then Sir in the corner pocket. So another quick note here, the reason why Sir is placed in this spot right here is she's going to be healing Cinia to help keep her alive and any other melee heroes that walk up to the front in the radius. I covered this more in depth in my recent Puppet Corps boss setup video, so I highly suggest giving that one a look as well. I think most will have at least 1-star copy due to the code MQ123, which is expiring December 31st, 2021, giving you a Sir copy, and then your guaranteed copy when you do your first 10 times Dragon Summons, which unlocks after 1540. Obviously, there's potential for more copies through referral rewards, the ladder shop, and then just luck with summons. So to sum this all up, I would focus on the 2 times support, and then 3 DPS core setup, and then from there fill in the heroes you have to work with. Moving over to his skills, first up we have Bloodlust. Ares gains attack and haste when dealing damage. Can't complain here. Haste isn't an easy stat to come by, as I've said before. It only has a chance to roll on the 5th slot on a gold rune, seen like this. Only on certain gear sets, and unfortunately with strength heroes there is none. Don't quote me on this, but I do believe it's only in the gold tier, so it's going to take a while to reach this, so having this stat on a skill is very valuable. Endless Fury, when Ares takes fatal damage, he gains the Death Avoidance effect, which renders him immune to all damage and control spells. This skill can be triggered only once per battle. This is what makes Ares one of the must-haves for this game due to how well it synergizes with his ultimate, which I'm going to get to in a second, but having this ability to be immune from damage and CC for a set duration is huge. Keep in mind this can be removed by heroes since it's considered a buff or a shield. So heroes like Naomi, with her ultimate, since it applies the disperse effect, can remove this. Flan's ultimate, since it negates all active buffs. And Vieira's ultimate, if Misty is alive, removes all enemy shields. So it's a bit wide in terms of terminology, buff, shield, etc. I do have a hero counter video in the works. Hopefully this week it's going to be out to go over the popular heroes and the typical counters. Sweep attack, potential AoE, area damage, depending on how the enemy setup is positioning when he uses this, as it deals damage to enemies in front of him, applies the bleed effect, and a physical defense debuff. It's another solid skill in his kit as it allows him to do more damage with the physical defense debuff before rocking out on his ultimate and spinning, and more spinning, stage 1. Basically how it usually goes. And then finally his ultimate, Tornado Slash. Spins doing damage, immune to CC, and magic damage, which is crazy. This is the money maker. However, before level 201, it's not great. I mean, the damage is still there, but referring to his Endless Fury skill, at level 201, he gains Leech on top of this. So pairing this up with Endless Fury, where he doesn't take any damage, you can regain your HP quite easily, but until then, he just walks around with no HP until it wears off and then basically goes bye-bye. Overall, a ridiculous skill kit and why he's a must-have and so easy to skyrocket your progression once he's level 201. So where does Ares rank in terms of Ascension and importance priority for the Wild faction? So for me, Ascension priority, meaning up to 6 stars, he's number 1, and even if you don't like to see a hero in a game be so insane and carry your progression being part of the main meta, if you don't utilize him, it's going to hurt your account, especially as a free-to-play and low spender, because it's such an easy way to go through the content. Getting him to 6 stars ASAP being your main focus in the Wild faction is the right move, and because many will have invested into him, he's going to help you in all aspects of the game, PvE including bosses and PvP. For faction importance, he's still at that number 1 spot for the reasons I've mentioned. He's god tier, must have, OP, carry me, all those kind of things. Ares is overall an S+ tier hero, and although I'm not a huge fan of games when they have heroes like this, he does allow for the free-to-play and low spenders to progress nicely, so it does help in that regard. I think as new content rolls out, depending on what it is, I hope for more hero flexibility as an option. And finally, looking into his story, he's the top warrior in his orc tribe. He was expelled from his tribe for a crime committed by his parents, which is why you see the exiled berserker under his name, which I'm assuming. He went back after he heard of a massacre committed against his people by a group led by the Death Knight. Ares is tall and ripped with muscle. Yeah, he is. Also, just remember, this isn't the full lore of the hero. If you go to portraits and then you click on the hero and then you go to story, you get additional information. Like right here, you can see it has history. So moving forward, I'm going to use this as a template. So in the history portion, it goes more into detail regarding the expulsion from the tribe. He left and found a dwarf to train him in blacksmithing. After learning of the news about his tribe being massacred, the dwarf forged him an axe in magic red metal. When he returned, he saw the aftermath and became vengeful. I always thought what you saw here was it, so that was a oops on my part. So this is a nice refresher. Since they already have a skin out for this hero, the War Chief one, I'm going to show you that right now. It honestly looks awesome. It's very nice subtle detail added compared to the original. One thing I do hope they add in the future is with the skin comes different effects. If I look at the original and the War Chief side by side, as you can see right here, when he's using his ultimate, it's the same unless I'm missing something. I think because skins don't add additional stats, adding different effects would help justify the cost of the skin. As always, thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for future videos, and stay tuned for the next one.